But the idea here is that what we want to do is be able to ask some questions back and forth of each other. Then these are questions that we keep seeing coming up. John, again, thank you for many of the questions. You'll probably recognize some of them. And then at the end of that, we'll have some questions that we'll ask you. And if any of you want to speak to it, great. And then what we'll do from there is open it up, and if there's more questions. One of the things that we can do, if it makes it feel a little less formal, we can come sit on the edge of the stage and talk that way, or we can sit here. Is there a preference? No preference, great. We'll stay here for the moment then. The other piece is, if you need the restroom, you probably saw the signs. It's just around. They're just on the side of the theater over here. And if I want to say anything and really make a really strong statement, it's thank you to the district for the use of the facility. We really appreciate it. Gary for showing up and helping us out on the mic and lights. This is a beautiful space, and obviously we want to make sure that the community knows that we're appreciative that, one, we could be here, but two, again, Brett, your district and your leadership here helping us to not only pull this piece together, but also make use of the facility. So thank you, and please let all those involved also know. So if that's okay, that's kind of with the run of the show. That's what we'll do. If we get done early, great. And if not, we'll stay here as long as people want to, or until the janitor kicks us out, which we're told is probably close to 8. But the intention of today isn't to try to answer every question and everything, but to start the community dialogue up again. Just to kind of maybe set the table a little bit. We did a number of these for about almost 12 months where we were at the community center over by the city hall a number of times. You've probably seen my face there several times. We did have that dialogue, that interchange. We stopped doing those early last year, and the reason being is the city then took on their part of the process. They issued what they call the notice of preparation, which is what kicks off the EIR process. And since that time, we've been meeting with the city as well as community groups. But just to be really abundantly clear, we have been out in the community asking questions, and there is not a question we aren't willing to talk about, answer, and or engage on. So even tonight, if you have a really hot burning question that you think might be a really one that everybody wants to hear, this is the time to ask that. Going forward, we are also going to be doing a number of other community engagements at a much more informal level. Laura, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so we're going to be doing table talks. We started these out just last week, and they're just an opportunity informally to talk about the project, come with questions, learn more about it. We just really want to be accessible to the community in an informal fashion, just to have conversation. So we'll be doing those twice a month. We have another one next week, and then we will also be doing a third one starting in March that will be virtually on Zoom. So we're just also trying to do them at different times of the day and also online, so they're accessible for people with different schedules, working professionals, kids with families, of the sorts. So a few of you in the crowd have went to our first one, so we appreciate that. We look forward to seeing you at the next ones, and as the project progresses, we'll have more information as we move through the process.
And before we do formal introductions, just want to make sure that the group here knows, and again, this will be broadcast out. The Lewis organization, what we're trying to do is be involved in the community, be part of the community. You're probably all very aware we have a project up on First Street, 186 duplex units, which are now officially open and renting, so that's exciting. And the idea there is that we're already part of your community and we're already invested in what you're doing. So we're volunteering at different activities, we're investing in youth sports, we're working with the school district to identify priorities and needs, and we're working with the city, most importantly, from the get-go to be identifying not only what are the missing problems and what are those things that need to be addressed, but then if we were to launch forward and actually have a project and have success, what does that look like and how do we move that forward? I will introduce myself. I'm Rob White. I'm the Vice President for Planned Communities. I lead the Harvest at Dixon project. I've been doing this, ironically, since 2020. We first came out with the project in about 2022, and that's when we first started our listening discussions and working with the city. And then our formal application went in late 24, and then we worked with the city through 25, and here we are. Please introduce yourself.
Oh yeah, hi. My name is Laura Zuckerman. I am a project manager with the Harvest at Dixon project, and I'm working through the process on entitlements. I also am overseeing all the marketing outreach efforts that we're doing. So I'm involved with the newsletter we put together, a lot of the community events, really looking at strategically how we want to kind of invest in the community and be involved. And then we have two of our other group members in the back that are at the back table that are also very important and a part of our team helping us with this project moving forward.
And that's Suzette Rosales, raise your hand, and Yesenia Mendoza.
Yesenia.
When you send an email to harvest@dixon.com, it comes to us. So when you see a response back from our email addresses, that's why. So it is the team. There isn't a whole lot of other people behind us. The Lewis organization obviously is the one sponsoring all this. We are partnered together with the Karlshoy family, who are also landowners here in and around Dixon, been here for quite some time. They are probably names that many of you would recognize, including Axel Karlshoy. And the majority of the property that we are currently working on and work on this project sits just south of here off of Parkway Boulevard and going south. And we'll talk more about why it's there and what the proposal is as we go forward. And then if it's okay, we'll just start launching forward right now. Again, we have a couple of questions for each other. There is no absolute answer here, so you're going to hear what we know to date. And then as we know more going forward, we'll obviously evolve that. But the idea is to share with you what we've been doing, how much we know already, and what ultimately we hope to achieve at the end of this when we're at City Council hearings, hopefully sometime in 2027. John.
Rob, you mentioned you've been doing this since like 2020, but Lewis and that whole history, well, I mean, this is not something brand new in 4 years. You've got a long history behind this, right?
That's correct. So Lewis has been working in Solano County for over 50 years. Many of the master plans that you are familiar with in other communities, especially villages of Fairfield, Paradise Valley, parts of Vacaville. There are communities, apartment rental communities in Vacaville. We have a project going in Vallejo, Costco, right off of 80. We've worked in Sassoon City. We actually had a large project 30 years ago in Rio Vista. You might guess how that went. But the idea out of all of this is we're not new to your community. We're not new to the Solano area. And we're not new to Northern California. We've been working and investing in Solano specifically, but across Northern California for well over 50 years. So, John, maybe you should ask the questions. We're going to wait, if you don't mind, and I mentioned this a minute ago, we're going to ask some questions that are general questions we've heard, and then we'll come out to the community and ask those questions as well, if that's okay with you. Mm-hmm. Appreciate you. So, Laura, why don't you start?
Okay. One of the first questions that we've gotten before is if this will include affordable housing. So the project right now as planned does not include any affordable housing as in qualified by income, but we are going to be including lots of different housing types, which we're finding is something that's been requested and asked for by the community. So we're going to have apartments, we're going to have smaller townhomes, duplexes, single-family homes, some with smaller lots, some with larger lots. So really, we're going to have homes affordable for all different housing, income levels. So more affordable by design, but not necessarily affordable by sliding income.
My question. Who pays for road improvements, taxpayers or the developer? And that's a really nice, sticky question. So the answer to that is, as it involves new development, the developer pays that price. That could include things that we call on-site development, so the roads that are inside a project, also off-site development. And the CEQA document, the EIR, is what dictates what that needs to look like. What do the road sizes need to be to serve not only that project, but to improve the areas around it? So in our case, Parkway Boulevard will be pushed through to Pedrick. Pedrick will be improved all the way down past our project. Midway will be improved across our project. 113 will be improved by the side of our project. And then ultimately, there will be other places beyond just our development that will require improvements in order for traffic counts and traffic improvements to be done to address that community. So one example might be where Porter and Midway come together is a really sticky area from a commute standpoint. Could that be, and can that be improved? Yes. Our recommendation for that would be possibly a roundabout. So something like that is what we would call an offsite. Likely our EIR document, and that's what they're working on now, will have those kind of suggestions and solutions that then the city council and the city staff will look at. They'll weigh those, balance those against other things that need to be accomplished, and come back with those recommendations. And that's the documents that will ultimately wind up with city council. So do we pay for road improvements? Everything related to our project, in and around touching our project, yes, 100%. Beyond that, there will be additional improvements that have to happen to address, again, traffic counts as well as mitigation for that. But let me step to the side of that for one quick second, if you don't mind. The reality of that is we are also not just looking at how do you move cars around on a grid, but how do you also get people to interact with the rest of the community that exists already? How do you make sure people are visiting the downtown, going to the Hall Park, heading to the Mayfair and walking? We're suggesting that there is a really significant corridor, a pathway from all the way at the bottom of our development, all the way up to the high school and beyond, that ultimate transportation mechanism for families on bikes and scooters and walking, creating healthy lifestyles, getting them to Pond C so they can walk around, and over to Pond A so they can walk around there. So that engagement and that outdoor activity is also a strong piece of when you talk about improvements. It's not just roads, it's also ultimate transportation. So that's an important factor that I think often gets missed when you talk about roads.
Okay. So the next question is, how will this project affect traffic? And I think Rob, a big part of the question he just answered kind of rolls into this question. And so we're going through the secret process, the EIR process, to really look at what the impacts are of this project. And based off of that, the information we yet to know, we will use that to make improvements to improve the traffic. And some of these also improvements off of Pedrick and 113, those will also be in play, improving traffic, but we won't really know that until we're a little further in the process in the next few months of how, what those impacts are and how we will design it so we can make sure that's alleviated.
An important factor too, just to add on to what Laura just said, and I'm going to do some of that, by the way, because although Laura's been with us for a year, I've still been here a little longer. One of the original reasons why we were even considering this project and talking with the city is because they asked what would it take to push Parkway Boulevard over to Pedrick, so that both the high school as well as this entire neighborhood had another option of how to get out of this area. And that was where this all started. So this will result in the 4 lanes of Pedrick connecting up, the 4 lanes of Parkway Boulevard connecting up with Pedrick. It's also going to result in, if there is a shortfall on the Parkway overcrossing, that we're going to backstop that. It's always been part of the discussion. It shouldn't be lost. It's a commitment that Lewis has made. If our project is going forward and it's real, we're helping to get that done. So if the city winds up, after all of Chris's hard work, hey, I'm still $1 million short, how do I get this done? We're backstopping that for the city because that's the right thing to do. And that's something you all have been working on, I'm aware of, at least 15 years, and I've been told by some 20. By the way, on the Parkway overcrossing, I think it's an amazing feat of accomplishment to work with UP to get that in place. As somebody who used to live next to a bridge that had been talked about for 30 years and still doesn't have the funding to get done, and it connects a major metropolitan area, this is not an easy feat for any city to get done. So kudos to the community, kudos to the city for getting the funding in place and moving that forward. It is important. It takes a long time. But again, we're committed to make sure that those pieces of the equation get done as well. Is this project being built on active farmland? Simple answer, yes. All of Dixon has been built on active farmland. Valley Glen was built on the Dixon Ridge, some of the best farmland anywhere in the area. and every farm community member will tell you that. The Robins, the Gills, etc. We've worked with them. We're talking to them. They are our active farmers, by the way, on our property. So we understand what they're talking about, what they're up against, what their challenges are, both how the markets have risen and fallen. They are all on board with what we're doing. They aren't showing up here because that's not their dialogue. They're farming. They're trying to keep their crops in production. They're trying to work with active markets. But is this farmland? 100%. One important note for everybody in Dixon: if you grow in any direction, anywhere outside the city boundary as it exists today, and you will be hitting farmland, every single direction. And on the conservation website for the state of California, that is prime ag land. There is no differentiation. What we've done to address also what's in our project is we've worked with the city, UC Davis, and Kimley Horn, the consultant the city has, on going out and doing what they call a LISA survey, L-E-S-A. That's where they go out and they actually take soil samples and they look at what is the quality of the soil for holding water, does it need amendments, what's its growing seasons, what's it good for. And those scores we expect to come back shortly in the next month or so. That will be part of the CEQA process. That will be shared widely, but we're going in and we're showing exactly what it is that we are impacting and also then we will need to mitigate for. And we are fully aware that there will require mitigation for all of this. And mitigation could look like a number of things. It could be replacement one-for-one with farmland. It could be payment of a fee. It could be building facilities that then also support agriculture. Things like ponds that actually infiltrate and recharge groundwater. If there's an opportunity, because the sewer plant gets upgraded, injection wells, where that is a state of California mandate now. If you can do it, let's do it. Those are the things that we're looking at in a long menu list of things with agriculture, with the drainage district, and we're working and have been working with them for over 4 years now to look at every one of those options. Simple answer, is it active farmland? Of course. We are not trying to hide that factor. Are we doing things to mitigate for it? And does the community of Dixon already exist on farmland and will be growing into farmland no matter where you go? Yes, it's a reality.
Okay, thanks, Rob. The next question is, how will schools handle the additional students? So I know schools is a very important topic, and from the very beginning, we've been working very closely with the school district to kind of assess what their needs are. If you may or may not know, we do have a school site set aside in the project for a future school. So, I mean, really the goal and the purpose right now is to really understand what the enrollment numbers will look like as we kind of start building this project through the phases that we have designed. And as we work with them, understanding what their needs are. So that's definitely a strategic thing that we're doing. We work closely and meet with the superintendent to see what that is. But that's definitely something in our calculus. And it's a very complicated calculus because we have to assess if kids are going to be staying in the district, if they're going to private school, homeschooling, but that's definitely a very important need that we're looking at to make sure that we're serving the schools and the students in the community.
Does Dixon have enough water to support this development? Two answers. Number one, if we were to be working in the existing agricultural aquifer, probably. And that's an answer not by Rob White, that's an answer by the Solano County Water Agency. But we don't plan to do that. So some of you that have been tracking this for a while we have come upon a really exciting opportunity for Dixon and really the area to tap into an aquifer that is rarely and not widely used at depth. And by depth, I mean 2,300 feet and beyond. It's a Tehama B formation for those of you that are geologists. That water source, by early testing, not by us, but by SID and by parties up at the campus, looks as if it doesn't have detectable hexchrome, which is an issue in shallow groundwater here. And it looks like it has a significant amount of water flow is probably the easiest way to talk about it, which would allow us to not only put water into the Dixon system that would then help reduce your draw from the shallower aquifers, but the real kicker is there's a clay layer between the shallow aquifers that the agricultural community uses and that aquifer of about 300 to 500 feet. And that clay layer, if you want to think of it as an impermeable surface that extends tens of miles in all directions. And you don't have to take Lewis's word for it, or Rob White as a geologist's word for it. Vacaville is sinking 3 wells in that exact aquifer for their municipal system because of its quality, because of its flow rate, and because of its availability. Now, make no mistake, that is not a cheap adventure. We are going to go drill a test well, we think, right over here by the tanks. We're working with the city on that exact location. That test well, not a production well, will cost $500,000 just to find out if it's the right aquifer with the right testing, the right water quality, the right flow rates. That's just the amount of time and effort to get in and see. But if it matches the data from the well information coming up from the Northeast Quad area and over by the Dutch Bros, that will get us to a place where we'll now know what that geology looks like, what that hydrology looks like. And if it's what we all think it is, based on the best understanding and available information, it's an exciting opportunity for the city, but it's also an exciting opportunity for us to serve up quality water with a high flow rate that doesn't impact any of your agricultural wells or any of your agricultural operations in the area of Dixon. That's an exciting thing, we think, and we hope that the data, as we find out later this summer, comes back the way that we expect it to.
Okay, next question. What are the economic benefits to Dixon? So I think this has been a big question, and I would say that the economic benefits, the more residents, the more people that are here in Dixon, the more businesses, and we have residents going to them and supporting them. So I think it definitely will keep these businesses growing. But in a lot of the community outreach that we also are doing, some of the feedback that we get from the community is that they want more options for eating, for dining, for shopping, and also having a larger grocery store to go to. So I think the economics of it is we just need more people shopping at these places, more rooftops in order to support these things. And we've looked at a lot of this also because our company does do retail. We kind of know what the economics of it is. So for those reasons, having more people growing as a community is going to allow to have more options for retail and for eating and dining.
Are sewer, drainage, and power systems equipped for growth? It's no mystery. The city of Dixon has some pretty significant infrastructure challenges regardless of our project. You have roadways that need to be upgraded and resurfaced and improved, existing roadways. Anybody who drives Pedrick during the rainfall will know that right away. You have a sewer system that is pretty much at capacity in many parts of the city, but more importantly, the transmission lines from Central City, so just north of the high school here, south to the treatment plant, are not sufficient to hold existing capacities, and those need to be upgraded. More importantly, you have a sewer plant that, although it's working for what it needs to do today, it needs upgrades, and the state is already pushing out what those future requirements will be that are coming down the pipe, again, regardless of our project. Don't have to take our word for it. These are all verifiable things that the city can talk to you about, but also are regulatory drivers that the state has been very clear about. So you can look this stuff up online. You can ask those of you that have friends in those industries. They'll let you know what this is. Good example of improvements that need to be made in transportation. Caltrans is coming forward, and right now they're looking to address just past the Mayfair all the way down to the curve on 113, a widening and an improvement of 113 in its current alignment and current condition, because it's a substandard road for the traffic that's on it. As a state highway, it doesn't meet their current requirements. So that's already happening regardless of what we're doing. So that's a proof point that there are improvements that need to be made throughout the city. And again, you know these roads, I don't have to tell you about them. You know the sewer capacity issues. It doesn't mean that there isn't sewer capacity anywhere in the city. There is. The biggest problem is getting it from certain places to other locations can be a challenge. And we think, based on where our project is located, are working to work with the city, working with the regional entities to address exactly those problems. So the reason our project, if it hasn't become clear already, sits where it does, and instead of on the east side of the city as previously was discussed about growth, is because that's where the utility corridor heads, and that's where the drainage goes, and that's where the ultimate outlet for Parkway goes. Everything that is currently on the docket for the city that needs to be looked at and addressed in the next 10 years heads that direction. So it's no mistake that we're there, because we talked with the city, listened, and worked to bring a project on that will address that. Will it fix everything across the city? No, it's not intended to. Will it address a lot of your current problems that you, Dixon, will have to face anyway? It will. And in fact, by our current estimate, there's about $100 million over the next 10 to 12 years of infrastructure mitigation and upgrades that have to be done, that you, the city of Dixon, have to do regardless of whether we do a project. We'll be able to absorb quite a lot of that number, by the way. So the reality is, Dixon has problems that in your current condition have to be addressed. And again, don't take my word for it. These are verifiable questions that you can go and you can ask your local officials, you can ask the regional officials, you can talk to STA. Those pieces of information, the same place we got the same information, that's where you can go to validate all of this. I think the reality for infrastructure, and it's been brought up, that infrastructure doesn't pay for itself. That's a viewpoint. It's an important viewpoint, by the way. And I think the reality is that 480 some odd cities in the state of California would look at that and say, that's how we do it. The 58 counties would tell you, that's how we do it. Doesn't mean there's not a better way, by the way. It just means that's how it gets done in today's world. More importantly, there's a lot of research beyond those opinions of development doesn't pay its own way. There's a lot of research done by Urban Land Institute, Cal Cities, California's Association for Counties, that talks about how you can balance that. But here's a win for Dixon, because you already have something you've done that I'm not aware of exists in any other community in California. And that is, with our project up on First Street, this city put in place a CFD that gets charged on a per unit basis every single year that covers that delta. The reality is, Dixon has solved this problem for yourselves, but it requires all the new housing going forward to pay that fee. It's not a fee that's been levied on any existing home. It's only paid by the new development. So our 186 units up the street will be the first payers. The campus, under 1,100 units, and already approved, that will be a payer. And currently right now, and I'm going to quote this number and regret it because I'm sure that I'm going to be off a little bit, but right now, that number for multifamily, which is what our project is, the duplexes, is about $750 a year and goes up 4% every year automatically. And for a single family home, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody from the city, I believe it's $900 and goes up 4%. They're within about 100 each. But nonetheless, that is a per year fee in perpetuity. There's no end to that CFD. So you city, pat yourselves on the back, have solved that exact problem that's been brought up with this CFD. And there's an EPS report that went to council, got approved. I believe it was April of 23, if I'm not mistaken. And we are the first in. Campus is also in. And any new housing development going forward, so not Homestead, because they were already approved, any new housing development going forward will be subject to this CFD.
My next question, what amenities will be open to the public? So all of the major amenities, we're talking about the linear trail, these parks, park areas, those are all public amenities. So this project will design those, build those, and pay for those. The only thing that may not be included, so if we had developments that had some parklets or a development of single-family homes that had a pool that are managed by an HOA, those would be the type of things that wouldn't, but all the amenities that we are looking to bring to the community would be able to be the whole community would benefit from them. Our real goal is to have an ability to build amenities where there's walkability to different communities throughout the city and to the retail. So that would be a great amenity for the whole community.
And I want to reemphasize something Laura just said so it doesn't get missed. Any amenity that is tied to an HOA would not be a public amenity because it's paid for by those residents. That's their private amenity. Everything else in this community that we're suggesting will be open to the public. The trail, the park. So the HOA amenities do not show up on this map because they would be private to that community area. And not everything in this community will be an HOA. Not everything will be multifamily. Not everything will be super dense housing. And in fact, what I like to tell people is, if you want to look and see what the mix of housing will look like, just drive around this Park Lane neighborhood. There's some big lot stuff, there's some small lot stuff, there's some really small lot stuff, there's some mediocre, medium-sized stuff. It's going to be a variety. And you already have a lot of this in Valley Glen and here at Park Lane. We're not suggesting that we're going to come in and 5-story buildings and stack flats, and that's not what this project's about. So just to be clear, HOA-driven amenities would be for that HOA. Everything else in this community, the linear trail, the parklets, the sports fields, if that's what the city chooses, if there's a community center, if that's what the city chooses, all of that's open to the public and it's owned by you. So just to be clear. Was that your last question? Mm-hmm. Oh. Last question for me. Why can't this be built on existing land within the city limits? That is a fantastic question. It's one that's been posed, I think, a couple times. Let me go back to a minute ago when I was talking about the infrastructure challenges that the city's up to. And we are already doing infill development. Just to be really clear, we are an infill developer. We already have a project going. We have a second one being proposed. So we're not opposed to infill development. The biggest issue that Dixon has is you don't have a lot of lots of any real size. So to do a couple hundred homes, which is what it really takes to get even close to break even, and that's probably not, but even close, you would need somewhere in the neighborhood of about 15 to 20 acres to do typical single-family homes. If you're going to do something like we did up on First Street, that's 186 duplex units, and that is 11 acres. The one that we are proposing across the street behind the grocery outlet, that is 15 acres. There's not a whole lot of acreage that looks that big. Now, could you do one-offs? Of course. One-offs will not address housing needs in this or any other community in the long run. So the reality is there will be more housing. How you do it, where you do it, what you do with it, that's up to the community. We get that. But doing one-offs where you do a fourplex here or a 20-unit thing over there that some small developer might do, and those are important, those should happen, that is not going to build the community that Dixon is trying to be, which is a robust downtown, more shopping opportunities, both for restaurants as well as retail, a healthy, growing, amenities-driven community with pools that are open all the time, not just some of the time, sports fields that are well-maintained, not having to drive to other communities for the same things that you would do in your community. That's, I think, what the Dixon that a lot of people we talk to talk about. It's not the Dixon everybody talks about. I don't want to make this out as 100%. But a lot of people will tell the story that they would like to have more here. One thing, as Laura mentioned, Retail. We'd love to have another grocery store. We're retail people, but you can ask anybody in the business and they will tell you, you're not going to see another grocery store show up in Dixon unless somebody knows somebody from Nugget and can pull that string, and that might be true. But you're not going to have another grocery store until you get to 35 to 40,000 people. That's doubling your size, bluntly. Does that mean that nobody will show up? Of course not. That would be a silly statement. Could you have smaller grocers, a grocery outlet show up? Yeah. But if you want to know how well Joe's doing, go up the street and ask Joe. Walk in there, buy something first, by the way, then say, hey, is Joe here? I'd like to talk to him. See what he says. If he's getting the customer volume he thought he would get when he did that. But also, is he growing? Is he healthy? Is this a viable business for him? One of the reasons why he supports our project behind Grocery Outlet, and he's done that publicly, so I'm not saying anything he hasn't, is because he needs more customers. He wants people to be able to shop locally, and he wants to have a viable grocery store. And he's not the only story. You see a lot of restaurants that don't have enough people in them, and they'll tell you that. You see a lot of retail locations that open and then shut. We're not trying to change the flavor of Dixon. We love what you've done here. We want to help build that capacity. We, Lewis, if you look at any community we work in, are looking to enhance those efforts, your directed efforts. How do we support you in that effort? We're not trying to widen the streets in downtown Dixon. We want to actually get 113 out of the middle of downtown so you can shut the streets more often and have those cool festivals that you see going on in places like Winter and Vacaville. So we support your vision as you've stated it to us so far. The reality is, and this is a good example, there's not a huge amount of engagement about what you would like to see Dixon become. There's a lot of engagement around not doing anything, and that's okay. I don't have a problem with that, by the way. But Dixon will not stay static. If you look at Dixon 30 years ago, it's not the Dixon it is today. If you look at Dixon when it first was founded, it's not the Dixon it is today. Dixon's not even spelled the way it was originally founded. So the reality for Dixon is, as a smaller community, it will grow. And right now you have the power to dictate how that growth looks. We want to work with you as a partner in that effort. The reason we're suggesting the size and the capacity and the growth the way we are is having listened to a lot of community feedback and trying to solve the equation of not only addressing current infrastructure deficiencies, but then create a more robust set of infrastructure that will live on without having a taxation across the existing population. And that's a strong place to be, and we have done that in a lot of places. We have built sewers, we have built sewer plants, we have literally built schools, although that's not what we're talking about today. We have built parks, we have built sports facilities, and we build homes. But the reality for Harvest, and what I think if you take anything away from here today is, we are here trying to look and be your partners, and we have talked with the city a whole lot, we've talked with some community groups a whole lot, but we're not here trying to change the flavor or look of Dixon. And one question that didn't come up, but will, how long will this take? If we're lucky and we start infrastructure planning right after a very rapid LAPCO process, which we don't expect, the soonest a first house would be open would be 2031. And I'm being super realistic in that. And that's like everything has to fall in place. It won't ever go that way. But that's the hope. The hope is that working collaboratively, that's when the first neighborhood, the model homes will be open. And then it'll take another 20 to 25 years at about 300 homes a year to build that whole community out. The difference between Lewis and many other developers and our committed partners in this project, and I won't call out that committed partner because I'll let him self-identify, is that we're going to do a lot of this enhancement up front before you ever see a house. A lot of those infrastructure questions that have to be solved, they have to be solved before we can build a house, what we call first flush. There's a lot of investment to the tune of probably close to $75 million that will go into the ground before we, Lewis, ever see any money coming our direction. So it's important to note that we're here as part of your community. Again, we have a facility up the street. Laura and I are here a lot. We want to hear your voice. We want to hear your questions, your concerns. We want to collaborate together. But at the end of the day, and I think it's important to note, we're trying to work together on doing something that will eventually happen in Dixon. Is it on our timeline? Maybe not. It will happen. Development has already happened in Dixon, and it will continue to happen in Dixon. Growth is coming. We want to do it together. So that's the Lewis thought process, and that's the Lewis way.